What is up, everybody? I am Hoops and Hip Hop, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Pokeblock Podcast. I hope you guys are all staying safe. I hope you guys are all hunkering down in this interesting time of life that we're in, this interesting point of history, and hopefully you guys are keeping yourselves occupied while also just being safe in general and doing what you need to do. So hopefully you guys are doing great. I'm doing pretty good. Really, honestly, to be frank with you, after all this has happened, my life really hasn't changed that much because I'm home all the time making YouTube videos anyway, and I hardly left the house to begin with. So I don't know if that's a wake-up call for me or if it's like, yes, I was prepared for this, and this is my time to shine. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. Just doing the same old, producing YouTube videos for you guys, making podcasts like we're doing today, and yeah, that's pretty much been my life. So hopefully I can entertain you guys a little bit, just with my videos and obviously with the podcast. Today's podcast is going to be fun because I'm going to go very briefly over the stuff that happened yesterday with the Nintendo Direct. I'll comment a little bit on the non-Pokemon stuff, and then I'll comment on the Pokemon stuff. And then after we go over that for a little bit, I am going to get into the main topic of today's video or podcast, which is basically stupid things that I believed about Pokemon as a kid. Just things that I kind of like. It was my kid logic that put puzzle pieces together that did not belong together and caused me to believe something that was completely untrue, but I believed it because I was a kid. And also we've sprinkled in a little bit of just like crazy rumors that I believed to the extent where I actually like tried to like test them out. It's gonna be a fun time. You guys are gonna see how stupid I was back in the day. I was gonna do this as a video topic, but I figured it would be kind of more chill to do as a podcast topic, and I hadn't really got very far into making it a video topic. So here we are. Before we get into all of that, though, I do need to thank the lovely sponsors of UCast Studios and of the Pokeblock Podcast. They make it possible to do this every week, and we love them. So with that being said, today's episode is brought to you by the Tax Defense Group. Tax season is here, and that means it's time to file. Instead of going through the hassle of walking into an H&R Block, you can actually call the experts at the Tax Defense Group. They can handle your tax filing anywhere. And also for a limited time, if you're a W-2 employee, you can save half off your filing. All you have to do is call the Tax Defense Group before April 15th of this year and mention that you heard this ad on UCast Studios. So call the Tax Defense Group today at 800-850-7973. That number again is 800-850-7973, and you can visit them online at thetaxdefensegroup.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Writer Junkie. There are millions of good-paying jobs out there, and what might be holding you back from getting one of them is having an up-to-date, well-written resume. Writer Junkie offers a professional writing service for the low cost of just $145 with only a 3-day turnaround. You cannot beat that price and delivery time. So go ahead and call Writer Junkie today at 805-587-7966, and you can visit them online at writerjunkie.com. Mention that you heard this ad on UCast Studios, and they will get right to work. Alright, so Nintendo Direct. Going over the non-Pokemon stuff really quick. To be honest with you, it kind of, I don't know, like, first off, it was a surprise Nintendo Direct. They didn't even announce that it was happening beforehand, which is crazy. They never do that. So it was awesome to finally have a Nintendo Direct after the biggest Nintendo Direct drought ever that we've ever had. It was only a mini one, though, so it wasn't like a full-fledged one, and I don't know, I kind of feel like it made people more concerned than hyped, just because we finally got the Direct we've been wanting, but they didn't really announce anything. Like, everything they talked about is essentially stuff we already knew about, at least in terms of Nintendo first-party stuff. They did announce that we are going to be getting a character from ARMS in Super Smash Bros. We didn't know about that, and that is exciting for sure. They didn't say which character, they just said character from ARMS, coming in June. So make your guesses, basically. Other than that, though, first party-wise, everything they showed was basically what we already knew about. They talked about Xenoblade Chronicles. They gave the release date, May 29th, so that's good. And there's some extra content in that game as well, which is awesome. And then they talked about Bravely Default 2, once again, showed some more stuff, but we already knew about that game. And then the rest of it was kind of just smaller things, like indie stuff almost. They did talk about how BioShock and a couple other 2K games. There's BioShock, there's Borderlands and XCOM. They're all getting like collections on the Switch, which is really good actually because those are bigger third-party games. So that's awesome. But that was basically it. That was the highlight. There was no like a lot of it felt very indie-ish, and they were giving basically dedicated time and dedicated spotlight to these smaller games that would basically just be included in sort of a sizzle reel in a regular direct. And basically, if you had something cooking that was going to come out this year, now would be the time to talk about it, because we are now almost in April. You're kind of running out of time to talk about these kinds of things because you obviously have to give some time before it comes out to be able to promote it and stuff. You can't just announce it and say it's coming out next week. That doesn't really work. So we're kind of running out of time, and the fact that they didn't really talk about like a big hitter type of game that would be coming out maybe in holiday or later in the year is kind of unsettling. I still believe there is time for them to do something, but they got to act fast. Like they got to do something. So hopefully that happens. We'll see. But yeah, very interesting on that front. As far as the Pokemon stuff goes, they didn't really show anything new. Basically what they did was they showed new angles of what they already talked about from the initial direct where they revealed the expansion. So they officially showed off the Gigantamax starters, not the Kanto starters, but the Galar starters. And they kind of just went over Cub Fu and highlighted him a little more. They showed some actual gameplay of him, which is cool, which they didn't before. And just different things like that, but they didn't show anything that we legit had never seen before. It was kind of just a new, just looking at it from a different angle. Like for instance, last time we only had like the artwork of Cub Fu, now we saw some gameplay, but we didn't see anything that was like crazy or, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Like nothing we didn't know. So that was kind of interesting just because it more or less was a recap, and it kind of sucked because I would have loved to have made a video about the stuff because obviously it's been a little bit, but there was just nothing there that we haven't already seen and haven't already talked about, so I couldn't really do anything. Although the one thing I did really enjoy about what they showed is that the Cub Fu sequence that they showed off and like the animations and everything looked really on point. Like Cub Fu looked really lively. He had a personality. That whole animations of that whole sequence looked really fluid. So that's very promising, especially considering concerns that the base game had. So maybe they're kind of improving already right before our eyes in that respect. And yeah, there just really isn't anything else that happened in the direct Pokemon-wise. We talked about that was genuinely it. We didn't really get anything new. Just got just revisited stuff we already saw. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it looks good, it looks great, but there's just nothing new. So, gonna have to keep waiting for some new stuff. They did maintain the release dates as the same as they were before. So, June for the first pack, the end of fall for the second pack. So, or just fall in general for the second pack. So, yeah, just gonna have to keep waiting and hopefully we'll hear something soon. And now, getting into the main event, we have stupid things that I believed about Pokemon as a kid. Basically, I basically was like reminiscing, I guess, several weeks ago when I guess I was sort of brainstorming, or maybe something just triggered the memory in my mind. But I started thinking about stupid things that I believed as a kid that were true about Pokemon that, like I said, just due to my own experience with the game and due to just different things that my kid brain kind of like pieced together, I thought all of these things were true when they just weren't remotely the case. And then I am also going to talk about a particular rumor that I believed super hardcore that was completely untrue. And then I'm actually going to round it off by talking about one thing that I absolutely nailed and like totally was on top of to just like make me feel better about myself after just roasting myself for the next 20 or so minutes. But yeah, so like getting into this, just to give you guys an idea of the kind of thing I am talking about. When I was a kid, this was earlier when I was a kid, mind you. This was like probably 7, 8, around there somewhere. So it's not like I was like 12 thinking this. But at that time, I was convinced, or I had a strong hunch, that Porygon was an evolution. Now, let me explain, because I do have some logic behind this, I promise you. So Porygon is right next to all of the evolutions in the Pokedex. It goes like Vaporeon, Jolteon, Flareon, and then right after all of them is Porygon. So that's point number 1. Point number 2 is the fact that the end of its name sounds not exactly identical, but it does sound similar to Vaporeon, Jolteon, Flareon, Porygon. Like it has that eon sound in there. So my little kid brain heard that, and I was like, oh, shoot. And then when I noticed it was right next to the evolutions, I was like, yeah, I think this is an evolution. And then the third thing that really kind of sealed the deal was the fact that it's a normal type. Like, Porygon is a normal type, which, if you've seen my video, or you haven't seen my video on Pokemon that should be different types, you should go watch it. Porygon should not be normal type. It should absolutely be electric type, if anything else. Like, it's stupid that it's normal type, because Porygon is not normal. Like, Porygon is not normal. Go watch that video on my channel if you haven't yet. But basically, I will bring that up every chance I get and argue it till the day I die, because I'm very passionate about it. But with that being said, Porygon is a normal type. Eevee is a normal type. And with Eevee evolving into all of these other types of Pokemon, I figured, hey, it's gotta have a normal evolution. Like, there's gotta be a normal evolution too, because it's a normal type. So with it being normal, just like Eevee, and it being right next to the evolutions in the Pokedex and having that similar sounding name to it, I thought, yeah, I think this is like Eevee's normal evolution. Yeah, this makes sense. Like, I never, like, obviously evolved it in the game or anything like that. I was just like looking at all these different, like, completely separate facts about Eevee and Porygon. I was like, yeah, these fit together. These make sense. I'm pretty sure that Porygon is a normal type. When, no, 7-year-old Hoops. Porygon is not an evolution. That's not how it works. So you guys can see where my brain was at when I was a kid. I was thinking about the important things. If you're on YouTube listening to this, you're definitely going to have to go and leave your own experiences in the comments below, because I know I am not alone in this. I absolutely know I'm not alone. And it's just kind of, it really is super fun to hear what every individual person's, like, thoughts were relating to this kind of stuff as a kid. But moving on to the next one. This is one, actually, we're going to go to a more common one before I go to a more personal one again. But basically, during the days of Gen 1, I was about anywhere from 5... I would have been anywhere from 5 to 7, I think, playing the Generation 1 games. And I was convinced, and this lasted probably until I started my YouTube channel, and like I started getting into like watching YouTube videos about Pokemon and started considering making videos and really started to get into it, and just I was absorbing so much information because I was watching videos all the time about Pokemon. It lasted that long. But basically, I thought that rock types were immune to electric types. And this lasted over a decade, from when I was like 6 years old to the point where I was like basically 18, once again, starting to get into the YouTube stuff. And the reason I thought this is because I started off with Pokemon Yellow. That was my first Pokemon game. And obviously having Pikachu and going up against Brock, I would try and use electric type moves and none of them would work. And Brock is obviously the rock type gym leader. So I was like, dang, oh well, electric types don't work on rock Pokemon. And so I'd go catch a Nidoran and teach it double kick and then I'd win. But that supposed fact that rock types were immune to electric type moves, that stuck in my head. And it was completely untrue because the thing that is really immune to electric is ground type moves. And if I'm not mistaken, all of the rock type Pokemon in Gen 1, or at the very least, most of them, and certainly all of Brock's rock types that he had on his team, they are all part ground type as well. So essentially in Generation 1, rock types are immune to electric because they have that ground type backing them up. And that's why I thought that. And so this one I don't really feel as bad about because I have a legitimate reason for thinking it. And I know so many other people thought it as well for similar reasons. So I'm not as ashamed of this one, but I am kind of, I do look back on it and I just kind of chuckle at myself, considering that belief lasted for so long. By the way, I don't know if you can hear the noise in the background right now, but I apologize if you can hear it because of situations that are going on in the world right now. I don't have the whole house to myself, so I kind of just have to deal with it, especially when I'm doing a live recording. In this situation, I'd just be like, cut, take, reprint, but podcasts are more of a live sort of thing where you just got to go with the flow. So apologize for that. Shouldn't be too terrible though. Hopefully you can't really hear what I'm talking about anyway. But anyway, back to the whole rock electric thing. Yeah, I don't really feel bad about it, but it's kind of funny that I believed that for like a decade or more before I came to my senses. So pretty funny. Before we get into the next one, do want to give another shout out to the Tax Defense Group. Be sure to hit them up if you still need to do your taxes. 800-850-7973. They'll hook you up with a deal if you mention this ad. And you can also visit them online at thetaxdefensegroup.com. Also hit up Writer Junkie if you need that banging resume. Call them at 805-587-7966. You can visit them at writerjunkie.com. Mention you heard the ad on UCast Studios and they will hook you up. And the third one that we're now going to talk about is that during the days of Generation 3, when Latios and Latios were introduced, I was convinced, like wholeheartedly convinced, that Latios and Latios were pre-evolutions of Lugia, or at the very least were related to him, like directly related to Lugia directly in some way. And I believed this for a while. I mean, it wasn't something I believed like the last one until I was like 10 years later, you know. I kind of like figured it out pretty quickly that it wasn't the case. But at the time, I thought I was like so convinced that Latios and Latios were a pre-evolution of Lugia or were kind of like related to it in some way. Because A, their names both start with the letter L, and they don't really sound similar in how you say them, but they do start with the letter L. So like that kind of like connected them all together in my brain as like, yeah, they could be part of an evolutionary family because their names are all like somewhat similar, quote unquote. But the thing that really convinced me of this is that their body types are actually pretty similar. They all have they have the longer necks. They just have similar body shapes in general. Like Lugia comparatively is a lot more elongated. Like it's got longer wings that stretch out farther from its body. Its neck is longer and its tail is longer. But if you like took Lugia and just like compacted it up, it would look just like Latios and Latios. And so they definitely do still to this day, like they have similar body types. And because Latios and Latios are that more kind of compacted version of Lugia's like body type, that's kind of what made me think they were a pre-evolution, because they just looked so similar, but they also looked smaller like a pre-evolution. And so I was convinced that this was the case. And then the third thing that really kind of sealed the deal for me on this, I guess, was the fact that Latios and Latios were Gen 3 Pokemon. And obviously Lugia came from Gen 2, so we're just coming off of Generation 2 where Lugia was introduced, and so it makes all the sense in the world to introduce a pre-evolution, because we just got done with Generation 2 that came off of Generation 1, and they introduced a bunch of baby Pokemon for Generation 1, and then even in Generation 3, there are a couple of pre-evolutions like Wynot and Azurill that are pre-evolutions of Pokemon from Generation 2, so I was like, yeah, this is just happening. This is like a big old party. And so this is clearly the case for Latios and Latios. And yeah, you probably have to like evolve them. You probably have to like train them both at the same time and then level them up to level 100. And then if they're both level 100 in your party at the same time, when they get to level 100, they'll combine together and evolve into Lugia. That has to be what happens. Like, there's no other logical explanation. This is how my mind worked when I was a young child, just enthralled in Pokemon and not really understanding the world around me. These were the thoughts I had in my head. And don't you dare try to say that you didn't think similar things. I'm telling you, leave it in the comments. I know we are all guilty of this. I am just courageous enough to share my experiences, and you should be too, because we need entertainment. So, moving on, though, this is the one that is a rumor. This wasn't like a personal thought of mine, but it kind of falls into the same category because I fell hook, line, and sinker for this one. Most childhood rumors that you hear, playground rumors that surfaced back in the day, like a lot of them I didn't even hear about as a kid, but other ones I didn't necessarily like try to prove or believe necessarily, but this one I did absolutely believe, and it had to do with Celebi. Now, Celebi, the situation revolving around Celebi was pretty interesting in the days of Gen 2, because I don't know why I knew this, but I knew that Celebi had something to do with the Elix Forest Shrine. I don't know if I believe that just because it was a forest grass type or what. I don't know what caused me to know that, because I wouldn't have had, at the time, I would not have had any knowledge of the actual event itself, because I didn't have internet at the time, and there just wasn't really any other way for me to get that information. So I don't know if, like, in the anime they go to the Elix Forest. They don't, though, because the whole plot line involving Celebi in the anime got sort of cut when they decided to put Celebi in the fourth Pokemon movie. So I don't know where I found that out, but basically I knew the Elix Forest Shrine had something to do with Celebi, and so I was convinced that, like, there had to be some way to unlock Celebi, because the thing for it, where it appears, is right there. And then I heard a rumor, I don't know, probably just on the playground, that if you catch every single Pokemon, you complete the Pokedex aside from Celebi, and then you go to the Elix Forest Shrine at 5 a.m., I think it was 5 a.m., either 5 or 6 a.m., Celebi will be there. Like, you interact with the shrine and Celebi will appear. So I actually did this. I legitimately, like, I wanted Celebi so bad that I actually did this. I used the Master Ball duplicating glitch to just clone myself a bunch of Master Balls, and I went out and I caught every single Pokemon. I got all of them one way or another, or at least I was, like, really close. I'm pretty sure I got all of them, because the other part to this is that I remember, this is as a 7-year-old kid. Alarms don't exist in my world. My mom wakes me up at 8 o'clock when I need to go to school and get there by 9, but that is it. I don't know what an alarm is. These are foreign objects to me. But somehow I set myself an alarm at 5 a.m. to wake myself up as a 7-year-old kid to turn on my Game Boy to go to the Elix Forest Shrine after spending hours upon hours to complete the Pokedex. And what do I find? I find that I was lied to. I was bamboozled, and I was led astray. And I don't remember what I did after that, but I'm pretty sure I was very pissed, because I wanted that dang Celebi. I wanted it so bad, and I worked so hard for it, and I was just completely made a fool of. Which is why I'm very glad that in the Virtual Console Pokemon Crystal and the 3DS, they do actually add an in-game event for getting Celebi. You just have to complete, I think you just have to complete the main part of the game, and you get a GS ball from Kurt, and then you can take the GS ball to the Elix Forest Shrine and get Celebi. Like, it's all within the game itself, no special event. That's freaking awesome. They need to do that more often. But yeah, basically, I was made a fool of, and I mean, I want to say I'm not sorry about it, because even though it was like I fell hook, line, and sinker, it made for a great memory. Like, I look back on that, and I just honestly am proud of how, like, dedicated to Pokemon I was at that time, to the point where I would catch all the Pokemon, wake myself up at 5 a.m. to try and get this Celebi. Like, I'm proud of that, even though it wasn't true. I'm proud of the effort I put in, so I will say that. Lastly, though, we're going to turn things around a little bit and look at something that I'm actually, like, well, I'm also proud of, but I'm proud of because I freaking nailed this. I basically predicted this over 10 years ahead of time. But when I was 6, like, I very specifically remember this. I don't know why I specifically remember it, because it wasn't like, I don't know. I guess I just remember things about Pokemon because Pokemon's important to me. But this was just basically like, I was 6 years old. It was at recess at school when I was in first grade. And it was just, it was like just, I don't know, a day-to-day thing at that time that I definitely shouldn't remember. But I think it's because it's Pokemon that I remember it, because Pokemon is just like ingrained in me. But essentially, I more or less predicted Mega Evolution, specifically for the Kanto starters, about almost 15 years ahead of time, because I had created in my head evolutions for Charizard, Blastoise, and Venusaur. And this was without the help of, I know there was those Pokegod rumors that were around at that time that, like, They claimed that there was an evolution of Charizard called Charcolt and things like that. This was without the help of those, because I had no idea as a 6-year-old kid that even existed, never heard about it, had no access to, like, finding out about that. So I was just all within my own head at this point. And in my head, I had created evolutions for the 3 Kanto starters, their final evolutions, because I wanted them to evolve again. They needed to, like, have an extra stage, because, like, these Pokemon are just too cool to stop at, like, their 3rd stage of Charizard, Venusaur, and Blastoise. And so I created a 4th form for each of them, and I called them ingeniously, absolutely ingeniously, Fire King, Water King, and Grass King. Those were the names that I came up with them for. Like, I have no idea why. Probably because they were the pinnacle. They were the final evolution. So they were the kings. And yeah, those were the names I gave them, because yeah, that's what I did. And yeah, I essentially came up with this 4th evolution for each of the Kanto starters. And like, in my brain, it is exactly what happened with Mega Evolution. I mean, obviously in the sense that Charizard, Venusaur, and Blastoise all evolved again, but basically what I imagined them as in my head was exactly what they are as Mega Evolutions. Just Charizard, Venusaur, Blastoise, just kind of all beefed out and pimped out, and just with a bunch of, like, extra, like, bells and whistles on their designs and stuff. That's exactly how I imagined it. And lo and behold, about 14 years later, that's exactly what we get. So, yeah, that was before the days of YouTube, before the days of predictions and leaks and stuff like that. But I pretty well nailed it, and I'm pretty dang proud of that. So I just wanted to throw that in there after kind of roasting myself, to show that I wasn't completely stupid. I kind of had some good ideas back in the day. I wasn't all just like, just completely just off base. I knew what I was doing part of the time, so I just wanted to throw that in there, just wanted to mention that. But with that being said, that pretty much is all I've got to share today. That pretty much wraps up the time we have as well. So I want to say thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you guys are doing great once again. Hopefully all your families and friends and your communities are all doing great and are safe and sound. If you're new to the podcast, anywhere you're listening, be sure to follow, subscribe, whatever. Go on to YouTube if you're not listening on YouTube and let me know all of your personal experiences with this type of thing, or you can just hit me up on Twitter. You can also hit up the UCast Studios Twitter account as well and follow there if you're interested. And if you haven't yet, you can follow me on my YouTube channel, Hoops and Hip Hop. I do Pokemon content all the time. And with that being said, I will be back here for more Pokemon content next Friday as usual. And so in the meantime, I hope you guys have a great next week. And if you want more, you can tune into my channel because I will have a new video tomorrow as well if you just need more entertainment right now. So with that being said, I love you all. Have a great week, and I will smell you guys later.